Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Nat again. Today we are going to play with a little Whimsy stamp. I originally was going to go in a slightly different direction, so you don't have my usual showing you of the stamps and that sort of thing. But anywho, I wasn't feeling it, so we ditched the first part and I'll use the first part in something else maybe. So we've got this Whimsy Gruffy Little Gnome. He's so stinking cute. He's gorgeous. So I've stamped him out in Memento Tuxedo Black. I've stamped him out twice just in case. And honestly, if I didn't stamp that, I'd probably end up wasting it trying to find something else to use it for. So I figured I'd just sort of trim it off and that's it. And off we'll go. So I'm colouring it with my Copic markers. We're going to start by mapping out some of my shading. I don't do this too much on the hat because it's a lot smaller, but we're going to do it with the face and some of the other bits and pieces of this little grumpy dude. So we've got E04, we've got E11, E00, and then we've got E000. I do have to go through and pause this. You'll see in a minute that one actually, it's just dead. It's just dead. So we've gone back in and re-inked that little baby. It did sort of make the skin go a little bit oddball, but once I went over it a second time, it looked so much better. Then I just go back through and I touch up the darker shades and we work our way back out all over again. I'm also going to use some R20 on his cheeks very shortly, and one side on the darker side you can't really see it, but on the rest of it, I suppose you can. In this little light you can, but when at the time I was doing my real thought, I really can't see it. But anywho, I do eventually go back to his nose. For the time being, you will see that I totally leave him with a little white nose. But I do go back and clean and fix him up. So on the ears, I'm working out that the closest to the head is going to be darker because he's got quite a bit of a flappy sort of ear there. And the center is going to have a little bit of shading as well. On the hands, I've just tried to do wear in between the fingers so we can try and add a little bit of definition, and also right near his clothes. Next, we're only going to really use like these three combos in this little dude. So we've got B99, B97, B95, and 93. And again, I've marked out my shading with my lightest color, and then we're going to go in and work from darkest down to lightest, and then we'll do that again. And quite often what I will do is, you may have seen it on the face, I leave a gap before, like there'll only be one coat on the face of the lightest color, and I just tend to like the highlight that leaves me just that little bit more. And we're working our way back. We've got a bit of an Edward Scissorhands sort of thing happening here with the Copics, but that's me. I am an ex-hairdresser, so I probably do tend to hold everything in one hand and do the other one. Anyway, that's what I do. So we're just topping up. There's not really much I can tell you with the colouring because it's all pretty much the straightforward, the simple. I'm just trying to figure out where his darkest areas are going to be. My shading, my lightest area is going to be sort of on the centre. So on his cuffs at either edge is going to be the darkest. But I also put a couple of little lines in the middle there just to give a little bit of a flow of movement and give it a bit of depth in his little jeans. Next, we've got our warm greys. We're going to use W7, W5, W3 and W1. Same sort of thing. I've marked out not that you can really see it, marked out my lightest colour, my shadows, trying to give, again, the shadows at the either side. Also that underneath, so there's sort of like two little, it looks like almost that he's got, oh, what are they called? We always know I have to struggle with my words sometimes, especially when I get onto these videos. Suddenly my brain stops working. I think generally American peeps will call it a turtleneck. Many years ago we always called it a skivvy here in Australia. Well, that's what I grew up calling it, so but we'll go with that. So it's got sort of a couple of little folds in it, so we're trying to put a bit of definition underneath that. Right at the base of his neck, it's going to have a bit of colour, and at the underneath his arms. Also where his hands fall, especially that one on the our left, it's going to have a little bit of shadow underneath it. Again, where his underneath his arms are going to have a bit of a shadow, and we're going to try and put a little bit of definition, so give him a bit of a rounded belly. So I'm going to put more definition, more shadowing underneath that line and take it all the way across basically, and put a couple of extra little darker lines underneath it just to give it that movement in the cloth, in the material. I'm going to go back through and do our second layer, and we're going to pretty much call him good. So it's pretty much those three colours, those three combos that we're going to use with this little dude. And as I said, I started off in a different direction, and I originally was going to pick a different colour, like an extra colour, and it just didn't really sit terribly well. You know, it just didn't really particularly feel right. So I was going to put a red in there, but I thought, where am I going to put this red? So we'll ditch that idea and we'll come back to him another day. His little hat, we're going to do just alternating between the two colours, trying to give a bit of movement to his hat. So the hat has going to have folds in it. It's going to have divots where his little head is going to sit, or whether the hat is just going to sit. So we've already got that divot there in the top of his hat, so we're just going to accentuate that. Once again on either side to give it that rounded look of the rest of his hat down the tail. We're going to just call it a tail. And right next to his body is going to have a bit of shading. So working darkest down to the lightest, and we haven't fluffed around with too much. I probably only touched up a little bit of the shadows, and that's about it. It's a very small little area. No one is going to see it and think, oh, she only did one layer there. It's not going to happen. So we'll go with the flow. And my little pom-pommy thing is also going to be the blue. What the heck is that? The blue. With his shoes, we're going to have, if we put some shadow underneath his jeans legs, then it sort of sends it off into the background a little bit. So he's also got a crease in the drawing, so that's going to have a little bit of definition to it as well. The rest of his shoe, we've just sort of done a bit of shadowing at the dark, a bit of shadow at the both sides of his shoes, again to make a highlight in the center, and we just go through the rest of it, follow through. We're going to do 2 layers of that color, which is pretty cute. Finally, we got back to his little nose. So I'm going to work through the rest of colouring this little dude. There is nothing terribly outstanding in like anything different than what I'm going to do. So, and there's not really much I can tell you too much. Not really much I can tell you too much. Jeez, not. Oh dear. I don't know why I get on here and I have trouble talking. Heaven knows I can talk a hind leg off a horse. But anywho, what I'm going to do is, I'm really loving this muted soft look between the blue and the warm grey. So that's what I'm going to do. Is I decided we're going to just stamp the image out again in VersaFine. No, we're not. We're going to do it in Versamark. There is another part we're going to do in VersaFine. And I'm going to gold emboss, because the stamp has all those cute little flourishes and the dots and everything. So we're going to use him and we want to keep him. You could add these squiggles, these flourishes, these dots using other things later on. You could use some, I am going to use some bling, but you could use some stiggles to add the flourishes if you didn't want to. You wanted to cut him out and not restamp him, which is what I'm doing now. My Versamark does need to be re-inked. I'm going to have to grab myself some of that tomorrow, I think. And we're just going to use this gold. The really cool thing about gold embossing powder is look how boring and dull it looks. And then you heat it up and it's this bright, beautiful, it's hard to see there, but this bright, beautiful gold. So we've got this Paper Rose Gnomie stamp set, and we're going to use a sentiment out of that. So I've cut everything else out. I've got his little pom-pom there, trying to keep that and make sure I don't lose it. Going around it with some Distress Black Soot marker. Any water-based marker will do perfectly fine. And I'm not going to go around that little tiny dot. It's just not happening. But I am going to raise it up, so I am partially crazy. Put down some foam dots. And the gold, with the gold embossing underneath it, we've got some beautiful flourishes there with the gold embossing, and we're going to have a hint of gold behind our little gnomie dude, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to fuss around with this little tiny bit of foam because I'm crazy, and I really wanted to raise him up because I thought he's just going to look weird if I keep him flat and the rest of my little gnome dude is all raised up. Just trying to figure out which way he's going to go around. He's pretty much a circle, but there is a couple of little darker lines in him, so that I wanted to make sure they were down the bottom. So down below in the description box, we will have a link over to my blog. You can see all these bits and pieces. I really like the sentiment, "What's up, Gnome Boy?" And even "Hey Gnomie," that was my two favorites. They just weren't going to do. So I decided to ground him. Now I'm doing this very, very lightly. I'm not putting down an awful lot of colour because I don't particularly want it to go through to the centre of the card. And thankfully enough, that didn't. So we're going to use the Hey Gnomie, and I fussed around a bit trying to figure out the best place for this little dude. So we're just going to put him on the side. I thought some nice black VersaFine onyx would do well. And our card is almost done. We're going to put they're little gold gems. I just found them online. I don't know where they were from, but they're quite handy. But any little gold gem, anything that will go well with the embossing. And some of these I'm going to put over the existing dots, and the rest I'm just going to frame up my sentiment here. I did struggle with my multi-matte medium here a little bit. And with my gems, just go flying. So it would be awesome if you subscribe to this channel if you have not already. If you're the first time you've been over to my channel, welcome. Please feel free to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell, and you'll get notified whenever I upload a video. Take care. Thank you for stopping by. Bye.